All right, hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this week's Student Bites, your weekly source of insights into being LGBT in business and graduate recruitment. My name is George Wright, and I am the Student Engagement Lead at myGwork, responsible for our student outreach and graduate opportunities. If you have a question, want to talk, or just want to find out more about what we do, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. This week, we're joined by IG, a financial services company. IG is a partner of myGwork, and their job postings, events, and their company page can be found over on our network. But before we get into our panel, let's take a look at this week's news. Transport for London, TfL, secured a £1.6 billion bailout this week after running out of cash. With UK lockdown imposing an almost 90% fall in income as people avoid public transport, TfL found itself with a £3 billion funding gap that desperately needed plugging. The UK government gave the bailout in two parts: £1.1 billion in cash and a £500 million loan with strict repaying conditions, including scrapping free travel for under 18s, as well as free travel for those with disabilities or over 60 during peak hours. On top of this, and perhaps more controversially, the congestion charge was increased by 30%, to £15 and will apply for the entire week now. The future for TfL looks increasingly checkered as London companies continue to suggest their workers may remain away from the office until the end of the year, starving public transport of much needed income. The long-lasting results remain to be seen, however. Credit rating agency S&P has placed the bonds of a record number of UK companies into junk status. 111 UK companies now have their investment grade status reduced, including British Airways, Next, and ITV. The rating pertains to creditworthiness and is a guide for investors on how likely they are to recover their money. A company with junk status is high risk for investors and for the company. Borrowing money becomes pricier. This move comes as the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund has begun buying up shares in Western companies as Western economies slump in the face of the coronavirus, including purchasing shares in Facebook and Google. US department store JCPenney has filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection as the coronavirus lockdown continues to take its toll on retailers. This follows J.Crew, who listeners may remember filed similar bankruptcy papers earlier this month, citing similar circumstances. The retailer will put itself up for sale and restructure the business. It is not clear how many stores will close. Some think this is just the perfect storm. The company has posted losses practically every year since 2012, and many had considered it to be a write-off long before coronavirus hit. The steepest loss was in 2014, where it suffered over $1 billion in losses for the year. Founded in 1902, JCPenney operates in 49 US states and is one of the oldest department stores. Zoom video has been one of the major successes of the coronavirus lockdown, but Facebook is looking to get into the market. The social media giant has launched Messenger Rooms, which allows video calls of up to 50 participants without time limits, which will come as a blessing for many who do not wish to pay to access Zoom. The service can be used by those without Facebook accounts and will soon be accessible from Instagram, WhatsApp, and Portal.Zoom. Zoom has proven itself to be the video conference system of choice for almost every lockdown group activity, from pub quizzes to business meetings. By April, Zoom secured roughly 300 million daily meeting participants, up from 10 million participants in December of 2019. Facebook's new tool will certainly not affect Zoom's dominance with regards to business usage. For social usage, however, Facebook's new application could easily take a slice of the lockdown video call pie. And finally, the UK government has announced that the furlough scheme will be extended by 4 months. Employers will, however, begin sharing the costs of the scheme and start bringing workers back part-time once lockdown restrictions ease. The furlough scheme costs the UK government £14 billion every month and now covers 25% of the total UK workforce. Employees on the scheme will continue to receive 80% of their salary, up to £2,500 a month, until October. The extension was to avoid a cliff edge where firms would be forced to sack workers once the scheme was due to end in June. Lockdown restrictions remain largely in place, so most businesses would not have any income for some time. Any end to the furlough scheme would need to coincide with the full reopening of the economy in order for companies to have the funds to retain staff. For those uninitiated, Student Bites is a weekly webinar where we talk to different inclusive companies and their staff to learn about what it's like to be LGBT in the workplace and how you can get there if that's where you want to be. If you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll come to the end for our panel members to discuss. This week, we're joined by IG, who are a world-leading trader and investments provider who connect would-be investors with the right financial markets. UK-based, IG is the place for experts who care about wealth management and want to get in on the financial trading game. Joining us from IG are Pablo Camades, head of the Premium Account Executive Team, and Isabella Williamson-Hawkins, the iOS Technical Team Lead. Pablo founded IG Open, IG's LGBT network, in 2016. The network currently supports the specific needs of employees who identify themselves as LGBT and provides an open forum where people can network, exchange experiences, and speak comfortably about any matter, offering individuals a safe space where they can be out, open, and proud of their identity. The network also has an important focus on allies, straight employees, as after all, only with the support of the whole company can we really nurture an environment where all employees can perform to the best of their ability, regardless of sexual orientation or background. Isabella's key focus is to deliver a successful, stable, and client-centric mobile experience across IG's trading mobile applications globally. Isabella is also part of the IG Open Committee, IT Diversity and Inclusion, and Mental Health Initiatives at IG. She believes that all individuals are equal. The differences every one of her employers possess creates a stronger and more successful culture, product, and corporation. So I would like to welcome Isabella and Pablo. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, George.
Hi, Viola. So
good afternoon.
I guess I might as well start with a very sort of open question. And I suppose if we start with Isabella and then we'll come to you, Pablo. How did you get to IG and what made you want to work there?
So I got to IG through a bit of a well-rounded route. I actually started in sport and was a pro athlete, and then got injured and got into project management, working for an automotive company. And from that, I kind of took a sidestep into doing iOS development and was fortunate enough to go off and work with some companies in Toronto and also in London, which ended up getting me to the position that I'm in now. And I pretty much got to the place where I decided that I needed a new challenge, and I'd worked for FXCM Pro as part of my work experience when I first came out of uni, and always had quite a key interest in financial markets. And as being a technical engineer, it allowed me to work in different industries throughout my career. So I applied to IG on the back of it being highlighted to me from a recruiter and also doing my own research into the company. And I came and joined. I had a technical interview and a few other interviews and eventually got offered my position. And through that entire process, actually, it was really enlightening to see IG as more than a financial firm and more than a technical firm, and actually it being a pioneer and innovator in the space.
Excellent. And yourself, Pablo?
So from my side, I'm from Spain, and while I was working in Spain in private banking, an agency contacted me saying that if I wanted to interview for a financial services firm in London. And so they offered me a free trip to London, which I absolutely, without not caring too much about who was the interviewer, I said absolutely yes. It was a free holiday. And that's how I thought about it. And then I happened to then come to London, have an interview with the agency, and then they told me about the company a bit more, about IG, and the mix of my language knowledge, and so for Spanish and French, and also my passion for financial markets made me succeed in the interviews with IG. And I was blown away by how cool IG was. And I immediately thought, okay, this is not only a weekend in London, I'm actually moving to London. So I actually moved to London to work for this company 10 years ago now.
Fantastic. So, I mean, I appreciate the coronavirus has kind of changed it massively, but could you just give us an idea of sort of what your office like, your day to day is like working for IG? What sort of, you know, work you handle and what really people at your firm can expect on their daily?
Yeah, so I suppose I can talk from a technical perspective. So what the office is like. So the office is pretty cool. It's right on the river, on the Thames. It's over 2 floors. We've got really cool kitchens, pool tables. It's like a kind of like a tech firm, and less so financy. And we've got other companies like Deliveroo in the building. So it's a really funky office in itself. And working on a day-to-day. So from a technical perspective, our key focus is delivering mobile apps from my side and also delivering any form of platform to actually deliver the services that we do for trading. So a big focus on that is creation of new features and also maintaining the existing platforms that we have. So we go through standard sprint and agile mentality and methodologies, and structure our work around a 2-week sprint, and invariably that lines up with what our stakeholder and our design teams want, and also what our clients have requested on the back of feedback, and we look to get that into production as soon as possible. Yeah, without going into too much depth, it's a really good environment because actually it allows the financial aspect of it and the trading side also to really mix well with the tech. That's what IG does really, really well, is actually blends the two and actually finds the best solutions and features on the back of that.
Excellent. And Pablo?
So from my side, I work along with the client-facing teams. So I'm in charge of the clients that are like the premium clients, which are the high-value clients that we have in IG. And you know, Isabella does the technical side, and we are in charge of the human connection and interaction with our clients to make them have the most seamless experience throughout, from the moment that they open their account until the moment that they actually use the apps that Isabella works around with, for example. And so I work in what we call the trading floor within the company. Even though it's a trading floor and might sound very serious, it's an open space, modern office where you know, each person can sit actually wherever they want within the trading floor. It does feel a bit like a very googly, fresh environment physically, with views over the Thames as well, on the 5th floor, as much as just a floor under Isabella. So maybe just 3 meters worse view experience, but still good. And yeah, so I work in the trading floor where we currently have, like, you know, a very diverse bunch of people, and that's it. What was the rest of the question? Am I missing something?
So just sort of like what your day to day is, you know, sort of what kind of work you can expect to do.
I think also, sorry Pablo, just on that, IG's offers a really flexible workplace. So you're actually, even before Corona, you were able to work from home, and it was a really key part of our methodology as a company that our employees have a work-life balance, and that we actually come to work wanting to do a good job, and because we like working at IG, if that makes sense, because of the culture.
Certainly. So I don't know if you had anything else you want to add on that, Pablo, as well.
Yeah, no, well, the day-to-day, I would say, like, so I'm on the managerial side of things right now. So my day-to-day is managing the premium account executives, on top of managing the delivery of one of our main products that we launched a few months ago. But in the interest of the grads here present, I would say that the day-to-day that might interest them is what the day-to-day of a trader is. So these are people that normally start the day reading the newspapers. They start their day genuinely right before the markets open, so a bit before 8. But it's also very flexible because the teams, they are divided by languages, and the markets are open 24/7. So at the end of the day, what the guys have to do is, like, there's different shifts throughout the day. So there's people that start at 7:30 or 8 a.m. in the morning, and there's other people that will start at 1 p.m. to cover the American the American shift. So, and what they do during the day is then pass trades through the phone for those clients that prefer dealing over the phone or just answering client queries over the phone, and passing the deals for the clients and keeping them updated with financial markets.
Fantastic. I know so from both of your bios, it mentions your work with IG Open, and particularly you, Pablo, as a founder. And I just wondered, if you could tell us a little bit more maybe about some of the stuff that IG Open has done at the firm. You've mentioned that it's really sort of open and quite inviting culture so far. So I'm just interested to see sort of where IG Open has kind of fit into that.
So IG Open, well, the first thing is that I could potentially link it a little bit with my personal experience. I think that probably a lot of grads might feel about this. And when I joined IG the first year, I wasn't out because I thought that my progression could be affected by it. So after 1 year, which is a long time of debating in my mind, when am I going to come out? Everybody's sharing their personal lives. I'm not sharing my actual personal life. At what point could I change that? So after speaking with my manager, with who I got really well along, and with friends from the industry, I was actually getting really jealous of other companies having LGBT networks where people could actually mingle together and share the same experiences that they're going through within the company, feeling supported, and so on and so on. And then after analyzing several networks from outside of IG, I realized the importance as well that obviously it's very cool to have a bunch of LGBT people that hang out together, but if you want to feel comfortable in the company, the most important thing is to have also the rest of the company on board. So we then founded the LGBT network with a very strong focus on allies, which at the end of the day are the people that have to support the LGBT people in the company and make them feel welcome, integrated, so that from day one they can be out. So the way you link all of this then with the network is when you join IG, in the hub, in the web page that you have when you open your laptop for the first time in the day, one of the links that you have is a page that links you to the LGBT network, which is called an IG Open in our case, and you can join the networks in 3 different forms. You can join as an ally, as an LGBT disclosed, so someone that is comfortable to be out, and also as an LGBT undisclosed person. And that's the way you start engaging with a network. And our purpose then is obviously to help as much as possible for those that are not comfortable with being themselves. And those that join as allies, very often we take their information with their permission and we say, are you happy for us to tell someone that is not comfortable about being out that you are an ally? And then this way, those that are LGBT and don't feel that comfortable about being themselves, they realize that their manager is a supporter, that their colleagues are supporters, and so on and so on. And that's how you actually get people feel a bit more comfortable within the workspace.
Yeah, and that sounds fantastic. We hear a lot about different sort of LGBT support networks and how they're implemented, but that sounds fantastic. This premise of really ensuring, to bring people into it. I imagine, so, I don't know, so is it a network that puts on a lot of events, or is it predominantly just support structure? What sort of, what sort of work does the committee sort of carry out sort of within the firm, within the office?
So we touch on many points. We do educational events. We sponsor external events. We do drinks. There's panels. We sponsor the summer party on the rooftop in normal times. We sponsor also the BFI Film Festival. And we join forces with Interbank, which is an LGBT forum in the city, and we do a lot of events joint with them as well, and they touch on different aspects, whether it is development or education, or concentrating maybe one day on a L event for lesbian people, another one for bi. There's tons of things that we get involved with throughout the year.
I think, George, also on that, I only joined IG about 18 months ago, and when I first joined, signed up on the hub, and the first thing that I realized was that I was getting all of these invites, and I've never worked anywhere really where I had these invites in such like a large amount, but it wasn't just one event. Like there was always another one and another one. And then when it got to Pride in the office, like the entire office was decorated out. Everybody was almost invited in, obviously, to be involved, like no matter who you were. And these events and just almost just the inclusivity of the entire culture kind of makes it a non-issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, I mean, it's really interesting, so particularly from your perspective, you know, from coming to within the last 18 months, you know, to know that it's working to that extent, you know, that, you know, even new staff who may not necessarily have had these experiences before still feel as though, you know, they can benefit from that. So that's great to hear. Is the LGBT network all that sort of happens at IG for LGBT affairs, or is there, you know, or does it? I'm trying to think how to word this properly. I mean, rather, like, so with your LGBT network, is it predominantly the LGBT network that is pushing for change and culture in the office, or is there support, you know, from senior parts of the company, you know, or what is that sort of balance between the network, if I may ask?
Yeah, it comes from all over. So true that, and mainly, you know, the fun stuff, very easily, it's us who organize it. I'm really sorry. But at the end of the day, the agenda and the respect and everything, it does come from the very, very top to the very, very bottom. The organization is so supportive. And starting with our CEO, which herself, like the first, so we have a new CEO for now a year and a half. On her first week, one of the very first meetings she had was actually with our network and the women's network. And it was one of the main things, and she feels really, really close to it. And it, like, to me, it got really to my heart, because she said, like, listen, you cannot understand, although she's a straight ally of IG Open, you cannot understand at what point I feel, you know, every other issue that maybe someone that is LGBT can feel, because I am a minority myself. She said, I'm a woman, I am Asian, I am a CEO. She was a minority from so many angles that she's really, really close to the cause herself. And I could give examples going down the ladder, but our sponsors as well, which are within the X committee, they're extremely involved. They even ask us, hey guys, are you getting involved into this? They share articles. They genuinely push us to go beyond what we ourselves already give. So support is there 100%.
We also, sorry, George, we also have like multiple other committees that kind of overlap with IG Open as well. So we have like diversity committees, and as Pablo said, like the women's network. So it's a big thing as part of IG's culture, is to kind of just expand this sense of like having a diverse workforce is the key thing, if that makes sense, and that's what we want to push, and removing those boundaries. So you can see that like throughout the culture, it's there.
Fantastic. Perhaps as a slightly broader question, I mean, a lot of people's, or in a lot of cases, you have people that feel they can't necessarily be out in the workplace, usually often due to, you know, personal perception. You know, I think, Pablo, you touched on that earlier when you mentioned that you didn't necessarily feel as though you could be out at work, and you realised that, you know, through sort of working with the network and figuring out where that place was. And I just wondered whether or not either of you had any thoughts as to whether or not there are any other barriers, maybe not necessarily at IG, but within, you know, the sector as a whole, that might possibly, you know, hinder LGBT people, and whether or not you had any thoughts on how we might overcome that. Sorry, it's a very big question, but...
well, for me on that one, so I've worked in finance, automotive, like loads of different areas, especially areas that aren't so keen on LGBT. So like media, for example, is somewhere where invariably if you're LGBT, it's usually fine. So having gone through lots of different companies in different areas, what I got to the point in realizing is that for me, the barriers actually almost end up being yourself. So I got to a stage where when I joined IG, I was engaged and happily getting married to a woman, and I pretty much just came out immediately. And by me doing that and being, I think in a way, just someone who's open and an ally, as in the sense of being a gay out there woman, it allows other people to see that it's okay, and then forming the connection that I have with Pablo and then with various other people in the IG Open community, and also talking to people in IG and saying, oh, my wife or my partner or whatever, and not getting the stigmas that you expect, it kind of verifies that there isn't an issue. I think there's always going to be problems with certain people, but I think trying to be true to yourself, and invariably as a culture in the company, if it's for openness and it's for that kind of environment, then you should just be yourself.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would completely agree with what Isabella said just now. I think that today, when each LGBT person is out there and just feels like, should I come out or should not come out? Like in IG, you'll find yourself in the same situation than everywhere else, actually. I think that IG has the tools to make it as easy and transparent as possible. Like, I think the network does that piece of whoever would like to know who is explicitly supportive, it can be shared. But it's true that, at the end of the day, it's each person's responsibility. Like when I didn't come out, did I not come out because I saw something that I didn't want to see in the office? Absolutely not. It's 100% on your confidence on yourself, because I can tell you that today in this company, being out, we've been speaking about the subject, and we're doing so many efforts on communication around this that everybody's aware of this. And I don't think anybody could care less what you are. This is, as long as you work hard and you know what you're doing, and it's a meritocratic environment, it's all you need. You just need to be yourself. And today, people, if you say, oh, I'm gay, like they say, okay, cool. And they will move on straight away, because nobody's surprised anymore, because it's a subject that everybody has heard about in the office and everybody's really comfortable with. So that, I think we can be proud.
Certainly, it's fantastic. Yeah, no, that I think, yeah, you've touched on that quite nicely. This premise that is sort of, as we mentioned, this coming back to your own personal confidence and your own perception, sort of where you're going to be in the workplace. So, thank you for that. I'm really grateful to talk about your LGBT network. If you don't mind, however, I'm now going to turn to talk about graduate opportunities at IG. So I just wondered if, well, I suppose we'll start with graduate schemes at IG quite straightforward. Is there anything, can you just tell us how graduates might come to work at the firm and what sort of process they can expect?
Who starts?
Sorry?
So there's two different processes. We have one for IT that Isabella knows about, and I'm front office. So if you want to start, Isabella, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So as Pablo said, two different processes, one for tech and one for trading. The tech one, I think so we do stuff around careers fairs, and I think you can just apply directly online. And if you're interested in applying, please contact Pablo and I. Pablo and I, we're completely happy with helping you with that. So when you join IG, you go through obviously the standard processes for interviews. And then when you get into the grad scheme, it invariably for tech is an 18-month program broken up into 3 5-month sections and 3 1-month sections. And the purpose of the 1-month sections is to kind of let you try different areas in the business and kind of see maybe what you might want to do in your next rotation or the rotation after next, and also let you see the different areas. So invariably you come in, you get placed into an area that we think best suits you. And then after that, the following 2 5-month placements, you get to choose yourself. And invariably at the end of that, you've come out as being an associate developer, that you as a person have met all the requirements that you need to meet. But invariably, if you've got into the firm and you're performing well, that's absolutely fine. And we just roll you off the grad scheme into invariably the position that you'd want. From my perspective, in my team, I've had 3 grads in the last 18 months, all of which are at the point now where they're looking to come off the grad scheme. And we've actually had a few situations where they've done 1-month placement, they've got to the end of that, they've come and joined the iOS team, decided at that point 6 months in that they want to be an iOS, and what we've done is we've managed to maintain them in iOS by just moving them to one of our sub teams, so they were able to focus a lot earlier. And actually what that's done for them is allow them to stick in the area that they want to stick in, but also it allows us to actually get them to being more advanced earlier on. But yeah, invariably IG is really good at just letting you, from a tech perspective, almost just find your own feet around the business, if that makes sense. Pablo, do you want to talk about?
Yep. So from the client-facing teams, the grad scheme consists in 6 months within trading services, which is the client-facing teams. So what we would expect from people is to have in general, but you want to touch on this subject a bit later about what we're expecting from candidates. But like it tends to be people that do like financial services and like the stock markets and finance in general, like potentially enjoy reading the Financial Times, and they would be then 6 months learning how the processes work with clients. They would pass like an exam to be able to be a trader. So actually they would very easily be able to, if they wanted to in the future, then remain in the company as a trader. But after 6 months and knowing all the front office tasks, they would then do 4 different rotations of 3 months each. And these rotations can be either marketing, risk, compliance. There are several other options that I could read out if anybody wants to ask a question at the end for more details. And then after the rotation, they would then decide which is the area that they would like to focus on and probably apply then to a role within the company in one of those departments. And in the way you would choose your different paths, it completely depends on what the person wants to develop towards, what they want to be in the future. Very interestingly, for example, if I was to have a conversation now with a grad, knowing the COVID times where we're living, someone that is doing client facing and would like to do a marketing rotation, I think that would be extremely useful, because today with the digital journeys and the digital marketing, you can reach to so many clients. And it's fascinating to actually put together the trading, liking financial services and finance in general, mixing it with the leverage that marketing can give you to bring new clients to the business, and get, in the case of a trader, a better sales scheme and get a better salary at the end of the month because you attracted people through marketing campaigns and so on. So it depends each person. Other people are more numerical and they want to move into the dealing desk and they want to just be execution only, so be what we genuinely understand as a dealer. Others are more analytical and they might prefer going into the risk department, which is quite interesting as well in a company like ours. So yeah, the paths and the routes that you can choose to develop yourself professionally are huge.
Excellent. You did touch on it ever so slightly there. So yeah, to come strictly to sort of the next questions, what you think IG is looking for in the ideal candidate, and what sort of candidate's best place for these processes would be like?
Pablo, you can go.
Yeah, since I'll just finish my bit. So from my side, which is different to Isabella's, we are really keen on someone that, you might not read Financial Times, but about current affairs. Or if you genuinely want to be on the top of the list, if you're someone that genuinely knows what's happening in the world around financial markets, if you're interested on what's being the impact, for example, as you've been showing us in the news at the beginning of this webinar, understanding what the impact of COVID is being on the businesses and how can it impact the price of the share. We really want someone that has the understanding of current affairs and ideally financial markets as well. And from there is the eagerness of willing to learn and being super open-minded about, because at the end of the day, financial markets, it's something that evolves. I think, to me, it's a mirror. It mirrors our personalities as humans. It puts numbers to who we are on the day-to-day, because we now like a lot social media, so it has an impact on the price of Facebook, of Twitter. And then when iPhones became a boom, the Apple started being super trendy in the trading floor. We couldn't stop hearing the word Apple a few years ago. At the end of the day, is a reflection of the human soul. And then now, like someone that works in the trading floor and that is super open-minded to understanding current affairs, you are in a situation of uncertainty like the one today. And it's fascinating to see, okay, so what are the clients going to want to trade right now? So I don't know if you guys know, clients are going crazy. Well, people are going crazy with the coronavirus, scared of being lonely, and people are buying pets like crazy. So there's like a pet company that are selling pet toys as much as ever, and it increased at 25% a week ago on the market, their value. So it's finding these opportunities and actually enjoying financial markets, I would say.
Excellent.
That's from my side, Isabella.
Isabella, if you had anything on that.
Yeah, so actually Pablo kind of covered quite a good few bits of what we look for as well. But from our side, it's that keenness for learning. So with the tech that we're using now, we're really picking up everything that's pioneering. And I think if you work in tech, you kind of understand that it probably is changing as much as financial markets are. So the willingness to learn is is a huge thing for us. We're working with some really cool software at the moment that invariably our developers haven't used yet, so they're going to have to skill themselves up on that and their ability to actually do that. The other thing that we are really keen on is problem solving skills, being able to take an issue and find the solution yourself, whether that's by asking for help or whether that's just being able to work through something yourself. And also pragmatism, so being able to work as part of a team and actually pick the best idea, even if it's not your idea. It's something that's really key. So that being able to create the right direction, not based on strong individuals in the team, actually based on the team's voice. It's a big thing for us. Yeah, and just like excitement and someone who's keen, like just keen to actually get involved and keen to make an impact. Like that's a big thing.
Excellent. To bring us on to our next question, to kind of blend the two topics about, as I've mentioned, IG is one of our inclusive employers. And I just wondered how you suggest, particularly, with finance, you've mentioned, both of your experiences with working with companies where, may not necessarily have been as welcoming. How do you think graduates can really find out whether or not an employer is an inclusive employer and sort of the importance of that? I don't know if Isabella, you wanted to start on that.
So Pablo is probably going to be better at answering this from an IG Open perspective than me. But I think a lot of that for me is actually talking to people in the interviews and who actually gets put in front of you in an interview and not being afraid to ask the questions. So say, like, what is your stance on this? Do you have groups that support this, or how are you participating in these events, etc. You kind of get a read on the company as a whole, but also obviously having a look at them online, because obviously IG is linked to multiple different events that they sponsor, so you can actually see that if you bothered to Google it. So that would be the best way. But I always find, for me, when I go for an interview, I almost just go into the interview being entirely myself and see if they like me. Because invariably, if they like me, then we're going to fit, and it's going to be a good cultural fit for me, for both my gender, my sex, or your orientation, and that's it.
I don't think I could add any more than to that. It was perfect. It's true. I think that there shouldn't be any fear on asking the appropriate questions on the appropriate moment within the interview. At the end of the day, when at the interview, when you have, they'll ask you, do you have any other questions? I think that when you start asking maybe like, what is the culture like? And then I think you can dig in from there and go into the details. And I think that someone that brings all these things to the table, and it's happened to me a couple of times because I've done tons and tons and tons of interviews during these 10 years. I think the people that actually care about the culture, and they don't ask the question, how's it like, just as a tick question that they ask, but they actually ask further questions and they have passion. You can tell that there's the type of people, genuinely, you feel there's a certain eagerness to be a leader, and there's some leadership in them, of them willing to understand if this company actually thinks like them on certain things that are extremely important. So I think what Isabella said is exactly what I would say. First search online to see what is available out there. Sometimes it's not that easy to, and not that explicit to the public. So I think that asking for those questions in the meeting are completely valid. So, yep, that's it.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. We now invite our attendees. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in and we can go through them. But just while we wait for those questions to come in, one last one. So lockdown clearly has given a lot of people, students particularly, free time at the moment. And I just wondered if you two had any tips or advice on things graduates can do at the moment to really best use their time in lockdown, or anything that you think might give them sort of like a competitive edge.
So for me, for tech, it's always about going off and problem solving. Invariably, every single interview you ever walk into, there's going to be some form of algorithm or something that you have to do. So what I try to do is at least once a day, sit down and try and solve a problem outside of my work. That really helps me in the interview process, because invariably when you get to that stage, you'll have either done something similar or you'll have the knowledge and the ability and skills to actually solve the problem. So that's something that would take like 10 minutes of your day and use a bit of brain power. And the other thing that I'd suggest is try and get involved in some of these communities that there are out there. And there are loads of events going on, even though Corona is still causing issues, but there's no reason why you can't get involved in the wider LGBT issues and events that are happening despite that.
Excellent.
For a grad, I would say don't stop learning, even during coronavirus. There's tons and tons of materials and courses. And in the case that someone was to go in the future to my side of the world within the grad, I don't know which one of both we sold our best. I'm kidding. I suppose it depends on what you're into genuinely from the past. But if you were to go in within finance, I think that I would encourage these times to have these big reads about the themes that are trending, things that are happening in the day to day. Subscribe to podcasts and read listen to the podcast of the Financial Times every morning, because at the end of the day, it's even if you go for drinks in the evening, it's surprising how certain things, it might sound really geeky, but very often it touches on the day-to-day of human nature, what happens in the daily news and the current affairs, and it gives you a reason to be able to have conversations with your friends, and it will be really easy to also transfer in the future if you are dealing with clients in the front line of a company like ours.
Excellent. And now to go to some of the Q&As. I've had one question come through that asks, can you tell us more about international careers with IG, if such a thing exists?
Yeah. So, from perspective, we have an office in London, an office in Bangalore, and an office in Krakow that our tech teams are based out of. So that would pretty much be the breadth of international careers. But for trading, I'm sure Pablo will be able to give you a bit more.
Yeah, from the trading. So I don't know if that person wants to be more specific about exactly what they're after. Careers internationally, it's something completely doable. It's true, as Isabella said, we have offices all over the world. And actually, for anybody that was to start in London, or if you wanted to apply to a job in other countries, you're more than welcome. But starting the grad scheme here, you are actually so anybody that starts in my side of the world, at least, are so wanted worldwide, because at the end of the day, the headquarters is where all the knowledge, all the understanding comes from. So exporting people from London to other offices is something that is asked completely, and it's a massive advantage to be an internal candidate from London and being a grad for any office. And it can go from maybe IT is focused mainly in Bangalore and Poland, but in my case, you could end within client-facing teams. You can end in the United States, in South Africa, in Singapore, in Australia, in Melbourne, and then all the European countries. Like if you speak any particular language, we have Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Sweden. I mean, I could keep talking. We have offices in around 16 or 18 countries, I think. I'm not really sure of that, sorry.
I think also just on that, there is always the opportunity to travel. Invariably at IG, if you work hard, you get that opportunity and it's there. So even if you don't want to go work in America or Poland or anything like that, to work with our international teams, and you do get the opportunity every now and again.
Fantastic. I've had another one come through that asks, what do you usually do anything with Pride, and have you any plans to do something this year? Well, coronavirus considered.
So I realized earlier that within all the things that we do during the year, Isabella did mention it briefly, but I forgot. Pride is one of the things that we do, and we actually march on Pride, and it's been 3 years in a row that we had a brunch before Pride as well, in conjunction with other companies. So we do get involved in Pride, and it's one of the funnest days that we have. And this reminds me, we also have what we call the Cupcake Day. We invite the LGBT network invites everybody in the entire company, everybody, doesn't matter your location, for a cupcake that comes with a leaflet about, you know, the pride of being either an ally or an LGBT employee. But coming back to your question as well about this year, very good question. So we are having to go digital, obviously, and we're kicking off this with an initiative that is actually being launched by our Indian office, which is great. The energy doesn't only come from the headquarters, it comes from abroad. And it's called, let me see if I say it right. It was hashtag the LGBT Ally Challenge, 21 days of LGBT Ally Challenge. And it consists during Pride Month in June, there's 21 days, which is the time that it takes for someone to get used to a habit, 21 days apparently. And there will be a challenge every day. So for example, one day could be you will watch an LGBT movie, and then you would post it if you want in your social media or not. Another day you would put a picture of you with something LGBT related, and there's 21 challenges. And the group that organized that in India, which is called Pride Circle, and that we're sponsoring with them for this occasion, they have a system where each person can post their challenge and their result in the system that they've created, and then you can actually be on the top 10 and rank. You might miss one day, or you might not got it right, so there's going to be challenges that are not necessarily that easy as watching just a movie. So that's what we're doing for Pride from an allies perspective. So as you can see, it's an initiative that comes from one of our other offices, and it's from the allies. And from the LGBT network, it's something that we're still working on what to do, but we're definitely already thinking of potentially arranging a little quiz.
Fantastic. It's glad to hear about it. It's amazing to hear about all the different initiatives, and I really sort of look forward to seeing what it's going to be. You know, with so many prides being cancelled this year, hundreds they reckon being cancelled. It is nice to see that initiatives continue to carry on, which is really, really promising. But with that, I am going to bring our panel to the close. I would like to thank both Isabella and Pablo for joining us this afternoon. I hope our attendees have found this informative. And if you have any further questions, I know I said a lot of people get very shy about asking them in a chat because they worry about whether or not it sounds like a stupid question. No questions are stupid questions. I think our panelists will agree. You can contact Isabella or Pablo. Their email addresses, pardon me, will be in the follow-up email coming to you afterwards. This has been Student Bites. Thank you for attending. Thank you to Isabella and Pablo for being here this afternoon. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the afternoon. See you soon.